Welcome to the Judging Seminar of the Personalized Chevrolet Chapter of the VCCA. Going forward, I'll be using the acronym PCC for our chapter. The purpose of this presentation is to familiarize PCC members with the process of judging our vehicles in accordance with the current PCC procedures and standards as documented in the Personalized Class Judging Guidelines and Judging Forms that are available on our website and shown on this slide. Our website will always contain the latest version of these documents, and the date of the document will be included in the document footers. The terms personalization, modification, and mod are used interchangeably in this presentation. At one time, the only vehicles judged by the VCCA were well-preserved or well-restored, correct cars and trucks. That is, they must appear as they did when leaving the dealer's showroom. At some point afterward, it was recognized that a number of VCCA members owned original vehicles, that is, those that were unrestored and unmodified. The VCCA recognized the value of preserving such vehicles and created a special class for them, the Historic Preservation of Original Chevrolet Features, or HPOCF. Then, the VCCA recognized that a large number of members own vehicles that have been modified to make them safer and more reliable for driving and touring. This class is named the Chevrolet Driver Participation Class, or CDPC. This class is for unrestored drivers with limited upgrades for driving enjoyment. But what about those vehicles that are more extensively modified or personalized and that are not drivers but are in show or near show condition? Their modifications disqualify them for class judging and CDPC certification as well. Thus, the VCCA chartered the Personalized Chevrolet Chapter to organize these members and provide them with their own judging process. Regardless of class, all vehicles must be at least 25 years old, including the PCC class. PCC judging is a two-step process. The first step is to determine the vehicle class. Then the vehicle is judged exclusively on condition. For each step, the vehicle is subdivided into 4 areas: exterior, engine bay, interior, and chassis. There are currently 3 judging classes defined for PCC vehicles. Each class is determined according to the number of countable modifications for that vehicle. This provides most members the opportunity to compete for an award regardless of the number of modifications. The 3 classes include contemporary, modified, and custom. The contemporary class requires at least 1 modification in 3 of the 4 areas. The modified class requires at least 2 modifications to the exterior, the engine bay, and the interior, and at least one to the chassis. The custom class requires at least 2 mods to the exterior, 3 to the engine bay, 4 to the interior, and 1 to the chassis. Any vehicle with less than 3 mods necessary for the contemporary class is considered more suitable for class judging and is not eligible for PCC judging. The modifications specified in the contemporary, modified, and custom classes are limited to countable modifications. In order to better understand this concept, it would be helpful to categorize modifications into 2 major types: improved drivability and visual enhancements. This is far from a simple distinction, as some modifications may serve both purposes. Improved drivability refers to certain modifications that improve the vehicle's acceleration, braking, handling, comfort, gas mileage, and/or listening pleasure. These modifications typically are not as noticeable as those selected specifically to garner attention. Also, these modifications are generally acceptable for certification into CDBC or driver's class. Generally speaking, these modifications made for improved drivability will not qualify as countable mods for determining PCC class. This includes such upgrades as seatbelts, turn signals, upgraded lighting, radial tires, radio upgrades, electrical upgrades, underdash, air conditioning units, altered exhausts, steering, suspension, and/or brake system upgrades. Drivetrain upgrades are also not countable except for limited types of engine replacements. Now, visual enhancements refer to any modifications that provide an interesting or pleasing visual effect to the vehicle. These modifications provide the opportunity for the owner to express individuality and creativity. Engineering and fabrication are factors in determining countable mods. Generally speaking, no features that were available as options in that model year are countable mods. A listing of countable mods will be discussed when we describe the judging forms. Once the vehicle's class is determined, it can then be judged. The PCC judging system is most like the VCCA class judging system. They are both 1,000-point systems. A theoretically perfect vehicle would score 1,000 points in both systems. With class judging, each vehicle starts with 1,000 points, but deductions are made as a result of issues of condition and of correctness. So, for example, the condition of the paint would be examined for dullness, nicks, or overspray. In addition, the color must be correct for that year and model. With PCC judging, the same attention is given to condition, with points deducted up to the limit specified on the judging form for that area of the vehicle. However, PCC judging makes no deduction if the paint is not correct for that model and year. Like class judging, a PCC judged vehicle starts with 1,000 points, but points can be deducted for issues of condition only. PCC awards are built on the framework of a well-restored vehicle. The development of our PCC judging process required careful consideration of the existing VCCA classes. Although modifications are discouraged for class judging, some point deductions for correctness will not necessarily disqualify the vehicle for earning an award. For example, the current class judging form allocates 35 points for wheels. So if a perfectly restored correct vehicle with custom wheels were judged, it could still qualify for an award in class judging. The PCC judging process intentionally requires at least 3 vehicle modifications to qualify for judging in the contemporary class. The idea is to provide some separation between the two systems, such that no vehicle would likely earn an award in both PCC and class judging. A similar consideration was made for separating the PCC class from the CDPC class. The CDPC class was created for Chevrolets which were not intended by their owners to be show cars and are described as drivers. The major differences between CDPC certification and PCC judging is that with PCC judging, condition is paramount and more extensive modifications are supported. At the current time, there are 2 possible awards that are offered by the PCC. Vehicles scoring over 950 points, that is, 951 to 1,000, will earn a senior award. Vehicles scoring over 900 points, that is, 901 to 950, will earn a junior award. Thus, whether in the contemporary, modified, or custom PCC class, a vehicle can receive either a junior or senior award based on condition. Unlike VCCA class judging, it is not necessary to first earn a junior award before earning a senior award. Also, all vehicles are compared to the judging form, not each other. There is no competition among vehicles in the same PCC class. Hence, there is no first junior or second senior award, for example. There are just juniors and seniors. The awards are tabs that can be mounted behind the PCC grill badge. The grill badge is a chapter fundraiser and is purchased separately. PCC judging occurs at VCCA area and anniversary meets and is by invitation to the PCC director or judging chair. Such participation requires sufficient PCC members who can administer all the necessary functions to conduct PCC judging. The PCC organizers at an area or anniversary meet are free to offer additional awards, such as the traditional first, second, and third place, or specialized awards for best engine and so on. But such awards are not recognized or recorded by the PCC. The PCC judging form is composed of two-sided sheets for a total of 4 pages. The first and second pages are illustrated on this slide. The member whose vehicle is being judged should complete those fields related to himself or herself and the vehicle in the top 2 boxes. A signature is also required. All PCC vehicles require a field entrance check, which is limited to the requirement to display a functional fire extinguisher and to drive the vehicle onto the show field. All VCCA vehicles require a functional fire extinguisher. The box titled Determination of PCC Class is where the number of countable mods by area is brought forward from page 3, which we will address shortly. Based on the number of mods in each of the 4 areas, the tabulator will determine the class and check the appropriate box: contemporary, modified, or custom. If there is not at least one mod in 3 of the 4 areas, the vehicle is not eligible for judging and the tabulator will check off that box. However, it is more likely that the owner or judge would have determined the vehicle is ineligible before the judging even started. The box next to the determination of PCC class is the judging results summary. This is where the tabulator brings forward the deduction totals by area from pages 1 and 2. The tabulator will total the deductions and subtract that total from 1,000 to yield the final score. Then the tabulator will check off the award: junior, senior, or none. The remaining 4 charts, 1 on page 1 and 3 on page 2, are used by the judge or judges to specify those individual deductions that were made for issues of condition. The exterior, engine bay, interior, and chassis must be checked and reasonable deductions made within the limits specified on the form. Each of the 4 areas is assigned a total of 250 condition points. The individual line items are difficult to see on this slide, but the form is similar to the one used in class judging. For example, within the engine bay condition chart, the exhaust manifolds are allocated 35 points. If they are pitted and rusty and appear to never have been restored or painted, the entire 35 points should be deducted. However, if they need a new coat of paint, then perhaps 10 or 15 points may be deducted. While there may be a reluctance to deduct many points, remember that it is not fair to the member who prepared his vehicle for judging when proper deductions are not made to the others. I'd like to make another important point. When judging a vehicle for condition, it is not relevant whether the part would have been painted, cadmium plated, or chromed, for example, when it was original. You are not to judge correctness. However, you need to judge the condition of the part as it is and make deductions if, for example, the paint is peeling, the cadmium plating is faded, or the chrome is pitted. Those interested in additional assistance are encouraged to participate in a VCCA class judging seminar, as judging for condition is essentially the same for both classes. Just remember that the deduction point limits for each area differ somewhat between the 2 classes, and that PCC disregards deductions for correctness. Judges are requested to make a notation in the comments column whenever points are deducted. Within the PCC judging system, there exist certain mandatory 100-point deductions. Such a deduction effectively prevents the vehicle from receiving any award, as a minimum of 901 points is required for a junior oval. All vehicles must be powered by a Chevrolet engine or GM engine if so delivered from the factory. An engine violation results in a 100-point deduction. Several rules were established to preserve the visual integrity of the original exterior. Any body panel or panels that have been modified or missing will result in a 100-point deduction. Examples include a hole in the hood or a custom raised hood a cowl induction style as to accommodate engine components, or flared or radiused wheel wells as to accommodate oversized tires. Exceptions to this rule include louvers and chopped roofs, as these were traditional customization techniques. Also, any body paint graphics or flames will result in a 100-point deduction. Exceptions include narrow pinstriping and graphics that were standard or optional on that model year. Ride height that exceeds 2 inches higher or lower than stock, based on the opinion of the judge, will also result in a 100-point deduction. Finally, a roll bar or roll cage will incur a 100-point deduction as a deterrent against vehicles designed specifically for racing. The judge or judges should sign the completed judging form. This slide illustrates the type of body panel modifications that result in a 100-point mandatory deduction. The picture on the upper left illustrates a 57 Chevy with a cut hood to accommodate a supercharger. The picture on the upper right illustrates a 67 Nova with a raised hood likely to accommodate engine components. The picture on the lower left illustrates a 55 Chevy with radiused wheel wells. The picture on the lower right illustrates a 36 pickup with missing engine panels. Any of these examples will result in a 100-point deduction. This slide illustrates some of the other modifications that will result in a 100-point deduction. The pictures on top illustrate graphics and flames. The pictures on the bottom show vehicles of unacceptable ride heights. Ride height should be within 2 inches of stock based on the judge's opinion. Finally, any vehicle containing a roll bar or roll cage receives a 100-point deduction. This slide illustrates acceptable graphics. Any stock or optional graphics will not generate a deduction as shown on the upper left. Ghost graphics are also acceptable, as shown in the upper right. These are graphics that are painted nearly the same as the exterior color and not otherwise noticeable at a distance. Narrow pinstriping, as illustrated in the lower pictures, are regarded as tasteful and not subject to deductions. Now, let's look at how we determine the PCC class. The PCC Personalization Class Determination Worksheet is on pages 3 and 4 of the judging form as illustrated on this slide. The form is filled out in advance by the owner of the vehicle. When the listed modification applies to the vehicle, the owner needs to check off that box. Only countable mods of personalization are listed. Page 4 provides guidance for some of the countable mods listed on page 3. I will explain, but first it would be a good idea for the PCC member to write his name on the top of the form. This is done in case the two sheets of the judging form get separated. If the member registers more than one PCC vehicle, the vehicle description should also be completed. The Personalization Class Determination Worksheet is set up with the familiar sections for exterior, engine bay, interior, and chassis. Now let's take a look at each section, starting with the exterior. One of the basic tenets of a personalized vehicle is that it must remain visually representative of the original exterior. Thus, only limited types of personalization have been permitted for this area. The lower portion of the slide is that section taken from page 4 that provides guidance for understanding certain countable exterior mods. The judging form is intended to be as self-explanatory as possible. However, let's go over the types of exterior personalization that are countable. We will also see photos to further describe these modifications. Item 1 refers to the paint. If the paint is a non-standard color that is highly clear-coated, this box may be checked. Item 2 refers to emblem removal. If the vehicle is nosed and or decked, this box may be checked. Nosed refers to the removal of emblems on the front of the hood, and decked refers to the removal of emblems on the trunk. Item 3 refers to custom brightwork. If the vehicle contains a custom grille, custom trim work, or custom exhaust outlet, this box may be checked. Item 4 refers to shaved door handles. If the door handles are removed, this item may be checked. Item 5 refers to creative personalization of the truck cargo area, including custom wood finishes, toolboxes, tailgate, and so on. If present, check the box on line 5. Now let's take a look at some pictures of these exterior mods. Here are examples of different paint schemes. The 57 on the right has Chevy Victory Red paint, base coat, clear coat, and is a rather attractive paint job. The paint color is used on later model Corvettes and Camaros. Thus, the box on line 1 should be checked. A 57 painted the standard Matador red finish, for example, or any other standard color would not be countable, and the box should not be checked, even if clear-coated. The cars on the left appear to have specialized pearlescent finishes. Such a finish would also warrant a checked box on line 1. This slide illustrates many other personalization types listed in the exterior section. The vehicle on the upper left illustrates a nosed and likely decked mod. So does the yellow 57. That would justify checking off the box on line 2. The two cars are also seen to have custom grills. Note also the custom exhaust outlet, lake pipes. The 57 at the bottom also has a custom exhaust outlet. As the extensions are cut into the bumper. A custom grille or altered exhaust outlet justify checking off the box on line 3. The shaved door handles justify checking off the box on line 4. Most early Chevy trucks came with yellow pine decks painted black. A popular dress-up method is to use other woods with clear finishes and with attractive strip sets. Each of the 4 truck beds in this slide illustrates how well the truck bed can be prepared. Any one of these trucks warrants a check box on line 5. Now, let's take a look at the worksheet for the exterior. This is the worksheet for the exterior. The judge must verify that the personalizations checked off on page 3 by the owner and the total in the box are valid. The total, which cannot exceed 5, should also be entered on page 1 in the determination of PCC class chart under vehicle judged for that area. Now let's look at the section for the engine bay. Item 1 refers to engine upgrades. This is not simply the replacement of one engine for another of essentially the same physical dimensions as would be allowable in the CDPC class. A countable mod would be a cross-model engine replacement where a 6-cylinder engine was installed in a model predating a 6-cylinder engine, or a small block V8 was installed in a model predating a small block V8, or a big block V8 was installed in a model predating a big block V8. Such installations often involve design and fabrication challenges. Also countable in this category for any model or year is replacing an engine with a modern fuel-injected, supercharged, or turbocharged engine, or the installation of any crate engine designated as LSX 427 Chevrolet, 502 Chevrolet, or 572 Chevrolet on the valve covers. Such installations generally add visual enhancements to the engine bay. Any of these engine replacements justify a check box on line 1. There will be photos next. Item 2 refers to engine dress-up. Simply replacing an engine may not, in itself, improve the appearance of the engine bay. There are many aftermarket products that can dress up its appearance. Examples include chromed air cleaner, valve covers, power steering pump, alternator, AC compressor, battery cover, master cylinder, hood hinges, polished aluminum intake, multi-carb intake, coated exhaust manifold, and hose and clamp cover kits. A minimum of 3 dress-up items allows the box on line 2 to be checked. Stock parts are not countable as dress-up items. Item 3 refers to the radiator module. Many times the radiator will be replaced or upgraded when the engine is replaced. However, this can be done with some flair if the owner so chooses. A complete stainless steel aluminum radiator module that includes integrated coolant and power steering fluid reservoirs or even a smaller custom radiator module should justify checking off the box on line 3. Item 4 refers to a serpentine single wide belt system. If the engine did not come with such a system, it warrants checking off the box on line 4. Modern fuel-injected engines typically came with a serpentine system starting around 1984. Aftermarket systems can often be recognized by chrome or custom-looking pulleys. Item 5 refers to a relocated battery or master cylinder from its stock location. Either or both warrant checking off the box on line 5. This slide illustrates the types of engine swaps that are countable for PCC personalization. The picture on the upper left shows a small block V8 installed in a 50 pickup. Clearly in the pre-small block V8 era. Below that is a big block installed in a 57. Again, clearly in the pre-big block V8 era. There are other types of engine swaps that are countable in any model or year. The picture in the lower left is a turbocharged 57. The picture in the center top illustrates a modern supercharged engine in a 65 Corvette. Below that is a modern fuel-injected engine in a Nova. Any modern fuel-injected, turbocharged, or supercharged engine replacement is countable in any model year. In addition, there are specialty crate engines that provide sufficient visual enhancements and excitement as to be countable in any model or year. These include the LSX 427, 502, and 572 engines as so designated on the valve covers. It was mentioned in a previous slide that countable engine upgrades require installing a small block V8 in a model year that did not offer a small block V8, or when installing a big block V8 in a model year that did not offer a big block V8. When determining countability, the judge must consider the year and model. So, for example, the full-sized Chevy cars and trucks were originally offered with 4-cylinder engines, but the 6-cylinder engine was available in 1929, the small block V8 in 1955, and the big block V8 in 1958 for cars and 1968 for trucks, pickup trucks specifically. The Corvette was introduced in 1953 with only a 6-cylinder engine available. The small block V8 was offered in 1955 and the big block V8 in 1965. The Chevelle was introduced in 1964 with a 6-cylinder engine and a small block V8, but the big block was available the following year in 1965. The Chevy 2 Nova was introduced in 1962 with a 6-cylinder engine available. The small block V8 was offered in 1964 and the big block in 1969. The Camaro was introduced in 1967 with the 6 small block V8 and big block V8 all available. So, The owner and judge must consider the year and model when determining whether an engine replacement is countable and whether the box on line 1 should be checked. This slide illustrates many of the other personalization types listed in the engine bay section. Next is engine dress-up. Although not all visible in this picture, the engine pictured on the right includes a chrome air cleaner, AC compressor, and alternator. Also, the headers are ceramic coated and the hoses and clamps are covered. So those 5 items meet the minimum of 3 and warrant checking off the box on line 2. The full radiator module on the right and the more modest unit on the left justify checking the box on line 3. Now let's get back to the red 57. And where are the battery and master cylinder? No matter, they are no longer in the engine bay, so that's another checked box on line 5. This slide illustrates a number of engine bays. Let's just identify the countable personalizations. Starting with the upper left engine, it appears that the owner upgraded the engine with a number of dress-up items. I count chrome air cleaners, valve covers, and twin carbs as 3 dress-ups. I also see a serpentine belt system and possibly a relocated battery. Let's look at the engine on the lower left. Again, it appears to be a small block replacement with many dress-up products. Although the air cleaner is not chromed, it is an aftermarket product and complements the engine. I would count it as well as the polished aluminum intake, ceramic coated headers, chromed AC compressor, alternator, master cylinder, and hood hinges. I believe the valve covers came with the engine. I also see hose clamp covers, a serpentine belt system, and possibly a relocated battery, and full radiator module. Let's look at the engine on the upper right. This engine is equipped with chrome air cleaners, chrome valve covers, twin carbs, and coated exhaust. I see no less than 4 dress-up products. The battery was also remoted. The engine on the lower right is clearly a modern fuel-injected type, which itself is a countable engine replacement on line 1. It has extensive dress-up, including intake runners, headers, and other components. The serpentine belt system is assumed standard for that engine and is not countable. The battery and master cylinder may have been remoted. 3 engine dress-ups warrant checking the box on line 2. Practice will make this second nature. Back to the judging worksheet for the engine bay. The judge must verify that the personalizations checked off on page 3 by the owner and the total in the box are valid. That total, which cannot exceed 5, should also be entered on page 1 in the determination of PCC class chart under vehicle judged for that area. Now let's look at the section for the interior. The interior includes the cabin area and the trunk area. There are 7 countable mods for the cabin area and 1 for the trunk. Okay, let's get to it. Remember, there will be photos next. We will first look at the cabin area. Item 1 refers to the installation of bucket seats. If buckets are added to a vehicle that did not come with them, even as an option, the box on line 1 may be checked. The box may also be checked if the model year did come with bucket seats, but the ones installed are clearly customized. Item 2. If the rear seat has been modified as rear buckets, curved seating, or other creative structural mod, the box on line 2 may be checked. Item 3 refers to the fabric coverings. If the front and rear seats are covered in leather or other upscale covering, the box on line 3 may be checked. Simply replacing one interior with another from a different model, for example, is not countable. Upgraded door panels, kick panels, headliner, dash area, and rear package shelf are not countable. Item 4 refers to the installation of a custom console. It must appear built-in and cannot be an option for that model. As with bucket seats, consideration would be made if the model year did come with a console, but the one installed is clearly customized. The console must contain at least 2 of the following integrated controls: a shifter, radio, power window or door switches, lighting, speakers, or AC vents. Aftermarket stick-on cup holder type consoles are not countable. If a countable console is present, check the box on line 4. Item 5 refers to aftermarket gauges. At least 2 aftermarket in-dash gauges, such as speedometer, tachometer, oil pressure, water temperature, fuel volts, or vacuum. Under-dash gauges are not countable. If countable gauges are present, check the box on line 5. Item 6 refers to aftermarket air conditioning. Under-dash single units are acceptable for CDPC certification, but do not rise to the level of a visual enhancement. In order to qualify as a countable mod, the unit must include at least 2 dash vents on opposite sides of the vehicle, or otherwise not part of the main control unit. If a countable AC unit is present, check the box on line 6. Item 7 refers to an aftermarket steering wheel or steering column. If either is present, check the box on line 7. Item 8 refers to trunk partitioning, covered in fabric or upscale material. If present, check the box on line 8. Now let's take a look at some photos of interior cabin personalizations. This slide illustrates many of the personalization types listed in the interior section. Note the 57 on the right. Bucket seats were added, which were not available in that model year. This would be a checked box for line 1. The rear seat was not redesigned, and thus the box on line 2 remains unchecked. The front and rear seats are covered in leather, which permits the box on line 3 to be checked. The console is a well-integrated item and is also covered in matching leather. Is fitted with a shifter, power window switches, radio, not visible, and speakers. This qualifies for a checkbox on line 4. The original gauges were replaced with decoded digitals within the same instrument panel cluster, including speedometer, tachometer, oil pressure, water temperature, fuel, and battery. This qualifies for a checkbox on line 5. The integrated AC system as installed warrants a checkbox on line 6, and the aftermarket steering wheel and column permit the box on line 7 to be checked. Now let's look at the vehicle on the lower left. This interior also looks impressive. The bucket seats would warrant a checkbox on line 1, and the fabric warrants a checkbox on line 3. The console is borderline countable as it contains the minimum number of embedded controls, switches, and lighting. However, it justifies a checkbox on line 4. The custom steering wheel also results in a checkbox on line 7. Now let's look at the vehicle on the upper left. There cannot be a checkbox for bucket seats, but the seat covering would warrant a checkbox on line 3. The custom steering wheel also results in a checkbox on line 7. The stick-on cup holder console is a good example of what would not be countable, as well as the underdash AC unit. Now let's take a look at a few personalized trunks. Here are 2 very nicely done trunks. Many of the trunks I've judged were not updated at all. These trunks are both nicely partitioned with rear storage area and tasteful trim. I would certainly give them both the checkbox on line 8. Now let's take a look at the worksheet for the interior. Again, the judge must verify that the personalization checked off on page 3 by the owner and the total in the box are valid. That total, which cannot exceed 8, should also be entered on page 1 in the determination of PCC class chart under vehicle judged for that area, which is the interior. Now let's take a look at the section for the chassis. Item 1 refers to the wheels. Aftermarket custom wheels, chrome reverse wheels or rally style wheels, if not standard or optional, warrant a checked box on line 1. Painted original wheels or hubcaps are not countable. Item 2 refers to the chassis undercarriage. Many upgrades are often made to the steering, shocks, springs, brakes, rear axle, and so on, but these are considered as improved drivability mods rather than visual enhancements. However, if a chassis is extensively chromed, as the shocks, coils, roll bars, brake components, with liberal use of stainless, gas tank, brake fuel lines, exhaust, and a clean painted frame, a checkbox is warranted on line 2. Any chassis that is clearly less than fully show is not countable. Now let's look at some illustrations. These illustrations support our discussion. The aftermarket mags, chrome reverse wheels, and rally wheels, not standard or optional, are countable on line 1. The painted wheels and hubcaps are not. A fully show chassis is also countable on line 2. A fully show chassis is rare. Now let's take a look at the worksheet for the chassis. The judge must verify that the personalizations checked off on page 3 by the owner and the total in the box are valid. That total, which cannot exceed 2, should also be entered on page 1 in the determination of PCC class chart under vehicle judged for that area. The chassis. Once this chart is completed, the class can then be determined by comparing the number of mods by area to those minimums listed under each class. The vehicle's selected class must meet the minimum number of mods in each of the 4 areas, except for the contemporary class. This slide is an illustration of how the scores are tabulated and how the award level is determined. For this example, we assume that the vehicle lost 15 condition points from the exterior, 10 from the engine bay, 5 from the interior, and 25 from the chassis. Thus, 55 condition points were deducted from the 1,000 points we started with. The net score after subtracting the 55 condition points is a score of 945. Because the score was between 901 and 950, a junior tab is awarded. Well, we've made it to the last slide. This slide is an overview of the process discussed in this presentation. The owner completes the determination of class worksheet and hands the forms to the judge. The judge verifies the countable mods and the class and proceeds to judge the vehicle. After the judging is completed, the judge gives the judging forms to the tabulator, who will verify the calculations and complete the judging results summary and determine the award. The tabulator then returns the forms to the judge or chief judge, who informs the owner of the award. The judge or chief judge will also return all completed forms, pages 1 through 4, to the PCC director for validation and recording. The awards coordinator will then be instructed to mail the appropriate award tabs to the PCC member. The original judging forms will also be returned to the PCC member. And that's it. I'd like to make an important point as we prepare for PCC judging. The quickest way to undermine the PCC process is to not faithfully deduct appropriate points for condition issues. It is important that PCC vehicles sporting a junior or senior award tab be deserving of PCC certification and represent the very best of the personalized class. Any compromises made by the judging team potentially tarnish the integrity of both the award and those members who own legitimate PCC certified vehicles. I sincerely hope you got something out of our seminar. Feel free to email any comments to info@pccvcca.org, which will be sent to the chapter director. Thanks, and see you on the judging field.